Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Since we are outdoors and I'm able to keep more than 6 feet between everyone here and we're outdoors, I'm taking off my mask now. So there we go. I hope that His Majesty King Andrew II will not send the thugs to come put me in jail. I hope so. But I'm being good. I am more than 6 feet from everybody, almost over 8 feet from everybody, and we're outdoors, so I should be okay without a mask. Thank you all for coming again. I appreciate it. Coming here again, you might say, why in the world would I still be doing this? There are many reasons why I'm still doing this. And the number one reason is there are actual answers to our problems. What we are all seeing now, this year in particular, is we must vote for one person because the other is bad. That's what we're hearing again and again and again. I gotta vote for Trump because I can't let socialism, or I gotta vote for Biden because we can't have Trump. That's the reason. We are now united by our enemies. We are united by what we're against, not by what we're for. There are so many problems that can be solved. And someone in this audience today, when I was chatting just now, said, Larry, I have an issue with the Libertarian Party, and that is I'm pro-life. I told you I'd bring this up. I thought I wouldn't, but I'm happy to bring it up. For those of you who know my stance, and I'll say this always, there is an answer for almost every issue. For most Americans, the pro-life issue is actually, the abortion issue, is a wedge issue. What does that mean? It means that you just say you're pro-life, and then people who are pro-life go, that's my guy. Or you say you're pro-choice, the person goes, that's my guy. But you actually change nothing. You actually make no attempt to do anything. You simply announce who you are. The people go, yep, that's my guy, that's my gal, because you're on my side, because you hate the other just like I do. But people who know me know I don't call myself pro-life. Why? Because I don't believe I want government to be the one who decides what happens, and government can't do it well anyway. Every time government has outlawed abortion, here's what actually happened. Poor women have been punished. That's the actual outcome of outlawing abortion. Does it actually make abortions less? No. It just means that wealthy women fly to the areas where abortions are legal and get their abortions, and poor women get stuck having illegal, unsafe abortions. You can't outlaw abortion. What you can do is outlaw unsafe abortion. Safe abortion. You can do that. You can outlaw safe abortion. So what does that mean? That means I actually want to make less abortions. I am anti-abortion. I'm just not pro-life. I don't want women getting abortions. I don't, and I've been very open about it. So how do you do something about that without having government put its hands on the bodies of a woman? How do you do that while saying, I don't want government to decide what a woman does with her body? How in the world can you do that? That's impossible, Larry. No, it's very possible. And what you do is you create an environment, because you create an environment to where women choose to not have abortions. The best defense against any bad activity or action that I don't want, or that I don't want you to do, or I'm against, is to create an environment where you choose not to do it. So what does that mean actually? When I was running, many of you saw this. What's the first thing I said in New York State? I want to make surrogacy legal. It was illegal in New York State. We're looking at making it legal now. Who was talking about that? I was. Why? Because there are many people in this state who would happily take your baby if you're pregnant, pay for all your bills if you're pregnant, and take your baby once you're done being pregnant. Against the law in New York State. Why? Why? Why isn't adoption easier? Why are people going to China, Romania, Russia to get babies? It's insane. Why is it so hard? They shouldn't make it easier. Not just that. Talk about it as I am talking about it. Let people know what you think. Have the culture change and adjust and shift. But not just that. On top of all that, I have an idea. How about contraception over the counter? To make less women pregnant in the first place, they have to make that decision. But I'll go even further than that. How about with all of that together? How about us if we create an environment to where we take all that money that we've been spending lobbying for and against choice, and instead put in the technology for things like an artificial womb. An artificial womb, if it existed, would make abortion obsolete. I would rather abortion be obsolete than illegal, because then it might actually stop. So if you want something to happen, focus on the outcome that we all can agree upon. The vast majority of Americans, whether they are pro-life or pro-choice, the vast majority would like less abortions. Not all, some don't care. But the vast majority of Americans would like less abortion. So how about we focus on an outcome that everyone can agree upon versus a method that we can fight over. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight the right. I don't want to fight the left. I want to convert them all. I want to convert them all. Yes, I'm greedy and I'm happy to be greedy. I want them all. I want to convert them all because this movement is the only movement where you can be as conservative or as liberal as you want to be. Just don't force others to be like you. That's it. Just don't force others to be like you. You might go, Larry, that sounds great, but doesn't that mean that you're going to fight all the time? Yes, that's exactly what that means. Yes, and we do. If you're a libertarian and you're new to our movement, you know we fight all the time. Yes, we do. Of course we do. Why? Because we have people who think differently within our party. We are literally the biggest tent party. Understand this. If you say to yourself, I am super liberal and I think everyone in the world should be liberal. Okay, great. Do you think it is the government's job to make everyone else liberal, to enforce your will upon others, and to force a more liberal culture? If you say yes, you're a Democrat. If you say no, it is, I want to be liberal, but it is not the government's job. It's my job, through my works, through my example, through my community, to convince the world to be more liberal. Libertarian. So, Larry, I'm super conservative. Okay, great. Do you think it's the government's job to enforce your will, to force a more conservative world, to force a more conservative culture? If you say yes, you're a Republican. If you say no, Larry, it's not the government's job. It's my job, through my example, through my community, through my works, to make people be more conservative, a more conservative world. You're libertarian. That makes you libertarian. And that means we fight. But the difference between our battles is our battles only end one of two ways. You're a jerk, you're wrong. One. Number two, you're not a real libertarian. That's how I was at. But if you're a Democrat, Republican, how do they end? There ought to be a law. That's how theirs end. There ought to be a law. And I want everyone listening, everyone watching to understand something. At the end of almost every single law is a guy or a gal with a gun who will put you in a cage. And if you don't want to go in that cage, they're going to shoot you. I don't want laws for stuff that makes me angry. Jails are not for people that we're angry at. Jails are for people we're afraid of. There is a difference. There is a difference. And we should be thinking about that with every law, every regulation, every rule that we make. This is the party that does that. Why is it so important now? Because here's what I can promise you. Yes, I'm not running for anything, so I can promise stuff, right? Kidding. So yes, I'm going to promise it to you. Once this election is over, whether Trump wins or loses, regardless of that, there is going to be sporadic violence. I'm not joking. There is going to be sporadic violence. People are going to be so angry. Tens of millions of Americans, regardless of who wins this election, are going to believe that they got cheated and it was rigged in some way, shape, or form. The Russians did it, the deep state did it, the Ukrainians did it, whatever. Somebody did it, guaranteed they're going to believe that. 100%. And they will do one of two things: resort to violence or check out. Both are the wrong answer. So how do we fix that? Our arms are open. Our party is here to take those people in. Our party is here to say, come on in. But how can we make that party available for them? We have to vote gold now. We have to vote gold now. We have to build the party now, today, this week, this month, this election cycle. We must build the party this election cycle now so that we are ready for when this happens. We have to do that. There is no other answer. We can't wait till everything is falling apart and then hope to build. It must be now. That's why I'm out here. It's got to be now. They're trying to tell you there's only two options: this bad or that bad. I have an idea. How about no bad? How about instead we vote for the good? And I know some of you are thinking, Larry, I love that idea, but we got to stop insert thing here. We got to stop Trump. We got to stop Biden. If you're in New York, which most all of you right now are. Thank you for coming, by the way. Some of you are who are watching. Thank you for watching. If you're in New York or any other state that's like mine, which is a deep blue or deep red state, you don't get to decide who the president is. Sorry, you don't. If you live in New York like we do, you don't get to decide. That's the system. Our 20 some odd votes are going to Joe Biden. That's where they're going. Period. Doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter who you are. Your votes that represent you from this state are going to Joe Biden. You live in Oklahoma, they're going to Trump. That's going to happen. There's no way around that. You can be mad at me if you want. No worries. It's still true. You can shake your fist at me. It's still true. So since you know that's true, why would you vote for a Democrat or Republican for president this year? Why? You're literally throwing your vote in the garbage. Literally, it's a wasted vote. Yes, I used the wasted vote thing. Yes, I did. It's a wasted vote. You could instead do the right thing, which is vote Libertarian for the future. Vote Gold for the future. Vote Gold to build this party now, to give us local victories now, to give us examples of success now. You can do that if you want to. And here's why I'm so happy about this. I'm very lucky today. Today I have somebody who you can vote for right here, running in this area right here. I'm going to bring her up here real fast. I've met her more than once. She's been on my show, those who watched my show. I'm so amazed. I want to come up and give us a few words, if we could. Victoria Alexander, please come on up.
Hey, if you're not going to vote Gold this year for Joe Jorgensen, I don't know when you would ever change your vote. If you want to avoid the violence that is going to happen, no matter which way it goes, what would happen if we woke up in the morning like we did last year and Trump was president? It was so shocking. I had no idea that was going to happen. That was so shocking. What if we woke up in the morning and Joe Jorgensen had won the presidency? Wouldn't that change? That would be as shocking as it was that Trump won. So here I am in this election. I had no idea when I decided to run again this year. I ran again. I ran the last time too. I had no idea that our country was falling apart while I was campaigning. I had no idea that they would finally show their hand at the Federal Reserve and just create fiat money and give billions, which translate into trillions of dollars when you have quantitative easing and you have the replicator effect. They turn these billions of dollars into trillions of dollars, which go to the corporate elite. Meanwhile, people got a $1,200 check. People who were not working got unemployment. That didn't make us any richer. That just barely paid our bills so that we could keep giving money to the banks and paying our mortgages and our car loans and our college loans. What is going on? Never let a good crisis go to waste. That is what's happening right now. There's a new deadly disease. People are going to be terrified. They are going to be in a vulnerable position. We can tell them that we can help. No matter how crazy it sounds, no matter how illogical it is, we can get them to do what we say because they're afraid. There will be so many bankruptcies. There will be so many delinquent mortgages in the coming months, not just on the car loan and student loan, but those two bubbles were going to burst anyway before COVID happened. When all these loans, these bad loans that were given out for, for college educations that weren't worth it, for homes that were overpriced in this inflationary economy, when people don't make those payments and they start defaulting, the 1%, the predatory class, has a lot of cash. They have a lot of fiat dollars just sitting there, and it's really no use to them whatsoever. It's not like land. It's not like real businesses. Stock these days is so inflated, it's not worth the paper it's not written on either. What's going to happen? They're going to want to turn that cash into real estate and into real goods. So during this crisis, when we were all fearful, afraid of dying and losing our loved ones and getting sick and being incapacitated, they were doing the machinations they wanted to do, put themselves in a good position to get real property. During the last depression, there was one of the greatest transfers of wealth from small farmers to wealthy landowners. And what do we have here in District 19? We have a lot of beautiful farms. Small businesses like this one can barely make it. So many of the small restaurants, and restaurants are one of the few industries that are still owned by individuals and not large corporations, that and salons and gyms. Those are going to be bought up. There's venture capital companies that are buying up neighborhoods because people aren't going to have mortgages anymore. America is going to become renters. I know that sounds very scary and maybe extreme, but we're living in really extreme times. Our deficit is $26 billion now. They have no plans to pay that back. And I don't know how many. Okay, so let me get to that's my fear mongering. I hope you're so frightened that you'll run to the polls and vote for me now. But listen, I want to talk to Greens, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and Libertarians. We all have the same goals. We just have different ideas about how to go about achieving those goals, and we fight over that. But basically, we want clean air, clean water, safety. We want to be able to pursue our dreams and do the kind of work we love. We want our children to be well educated. Really, we all agree. We really do. One thing that politicians do not talk about, unless you're a libertarian, is how money is created. And if you ask one of these politicians about the Federal Reserve and monetary policy, they'll say, I'll have to look into that and get back to you. Do you believe them that they don't know where money comes from? Maybe they just don't know. Maybe they have this tunnel vision and no one in their particular group ever talks about it. How are new dollars created? Where do they come from? The magical Fed. The Federal Reserve is a private banking entity. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There is no oversight. The Board of Governors are bankers. They do what they want, and they don't get approval from Congress. And there hasn't been an audit until after the bailout in 2008. They did a partial audit. You know what they discovered? A lot of money went to foreign banks. And that was the best news. When the Federal Reserve wants to create money, they have two separate. They have the Federal Reserve, Bank Reserve, where they buy U.S. Treasuries, and that's how the U.S. government can get itself in debt, because the Fed will just create money to buy U.S. Treasury bonds. That allows government to go to wars everywhere, all over the world, as much money as you want, just churning it out. And the budget this year is $750 billion for 1 year. For 1 year. If if Congress had to get the money for that and you had to pay for it and you were going to feel it in your pocketbook, there might be a lot more anti-war people. But no, they don't have to get it from us. They're just creating that money, and that's creating inflation. And so our dollars that we work hard for, because we don't have a printing press in the background, our dollars are worth less. We have to work harder and harder and harder to stay in the same place. That's why if you go on the Federal Reserve's website and you look at the wealth in the United States, you will see that the 1%, the top 1%, has 34% of the wealth. The bottom 50% of people have 1% of their wealth. This cannot go on. We must change it. Do it now. I will talk about this in Congress. I will talk about what nobody else is talking about. Where does the money come from? The one place I differ from traditional and the Fed libertarian point of view is I say, not back it by gold, because you'd have to pay somebody to dig up the gold. You'd have to steal it from other countries. The government would have to tax you to get it. That's not the answer. You create a new dollar. You use it to build public infrastructure. Things we need like hospitals. Those are public assets that are valuable to the entire community. We make a wealthy country this way. We don't create dollars on debt. Debt can collapse overnight, and it's about to. Create new dollars just for public infrastructure. And then people will be able to use public infrastructure for cost. And that'll solve a lot of our problems. I have what I call the Gold New Deal, and I have what I call voluntary health for all. And I've got a couple of flyers here, if you'd like to take them, and I've got some buttons. Please go to my website, directdemocracyus.org, because this is bigger than me. This is about a plan I have to have more direct democracy, to decentralize the power and give the power back to voters. We have time for one question?
Yes. How would you contrast yourself to your opponent, who shall not be named? What criticism would you have of his tenure?
Thank you for not naming my opponent, because why? Why talk about other politicians who have, they're on the news all the time. I don't know, what does he do? He does the same thing that any, he follows the Democratic platform, he's got public option. He doesn't have any radically new solutions that will appeal to the right and the left. I hate those two. It will appeal to everybody, that will actually work. And he doesn't have a plan for reducing the terrible economic disparity that we have in this country that is causing the social problems. Those are the underlying causes. I want to get at the problems, not just fiddle around with temporary solutions, create new laws for things. Thank you.
All right. Well, there was a little doom and gloom there, a little bit, but that's okay. Let's walk down that road. Let's talk about how bad it might get. It's possible that everything she's saying is totally true, and everything's going to collapse when we have a big problem. I see it in New York City already, where I live. I watch it. I see it happening already. People leaving and not coming back. So how do you fix that? I would ask, what is the Democratic plan? Thank you. Yes. What's the Republican plan?
Jail people.
Jailing people. That would work. Yes. Yes. Jailing people, spending more money, more taxes. That's what I see. But that's not how it actually works. As you see our economy begin to collapse and people become poorer, exactly what Victoria talked about is true. The average person stops becoming an owner and starts becoming a renter. That's already happening in our world. We have a rental mentality and no ownership mentality. But what does the liberty movement talk about all the time? The idea of an ownership mentality. How in the world do poor communities build themselves up? How did immigrants who came from Europe or wherever they came from Asia come to our country? How did they build themselves up? What was the number one way they did it? Entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship. Number one. Ownership of your business, ownership of your community, ownership of your life, of your future. That is the number one way they have pulled themselves out of poverty again and again and again. And there's some communities who came to our country who were horribly poor. And it wasn't because government said, here's some money, poor person. That's not why it worked. It worked because that person or those people put their money, time, resources, energy together and started their own business. The problem is we can't do that so easily now. When I was a kid, I grew up in a poor neighborhood. I grew up in the South Bronx, where I grew up. In the South Bronx by Yankee Stadium. The Yankees, by the way, are the best team in the world. So yes, totally true. Yes. I'm just saying, I'm just spitting facts, guys. That's all I'm doing. Just spitting facts. So yes. So without question, I grew up in the South Bronx, right by Yankee Stadium. And how did people make money? Well, when I was a kid in the 70s, cabs wouldn't come to my neighborhood. So we had gypsy cabs. We didn't have Uber back then. This is the 70s, no Uber, right? One guy would paint one of his doors different color, and we'd know that's gypsy cab. Right? It'd be a black car with a red door. Okay, gypsy cab. We'd know. Give the guy $5 what the price was, he'd drive him around. Now they're trying to regulate Uber out. They're trying to end even that. So now we can't do that anymore. We used to have little small girls would sit out in the stoop and braid hair for money. They used to do that when I was a kid. Can't do it anymore. You need a license now in New York State. Braid hair. I'm not joking. Now they're having a new one to wash hair. You guys see that? It's a shampooing one now to wash hair. I'm kind of curious, who's heard of all the deaths from shampooing? I don't remember all those deaths. I must have missed that report. Maybe it was Fox or CNN. I don't know. I missed that report. Doesn't exist, but now they're doing that. Every bit of making us and allowing us to use our own energy and our own time and our own property to become great and build up is going away. We're becoming society just waits for the next bailout, waits for the next handout. It's not healthy. What Victoria is talking about is exactly correct. We have to change our mindset to an ownership mentality. How are we going to build ourselves and build ourselves out of this depression, out of this idea of the wealthy 1% owning everything, is by the lower 50% having an ownership mentality and buying it all back with sweat and toil and energy and the resources. That's how we do it. It's what's happened every single time. It's the success story in every country when it's ever happened. And it's been our success story countless times. As people keep coming to our country, what's the first thing they do? Buy a store, buy a food cart, right? Start driving Uber, buy a taxi cab medallion in New York City. They become their own bosses and they own their jobs. It's what they do. Ownership is everything. I would ask you, what party talks about ownership? Yeah, just us. Nobody else but us. We talk about it because we support it. We're the ones who say, remove regulations so that small businesses can grow. Not remove regulations so big business can grow, or worse, create regulations to ensure only big business survives because small business can't possibly survive all the regulatory hoops that they jump through. That's what we're about. We're about solving problems, and we're actually the only party that's about the little guy. The only one. Guys, any questions or comments before I wrap this up? Please go ahead. Awesome. Yes, and the funny part is they're trying to end licensing. Why would an institute that cares about people who are poor, why would they care about licensing? That doesn't make any sense. Is it licensing to make people safe? Well, there's a license now for walking a dog. I don't remember the story about all the people dying from evil dog walkers. I don't remember that story either. I don't remember that, right? There's a license for that though now, right? I don't remember. Where is that? I don't remember because it doesn't exist. Right? It doesn't exist. Braiding hair. I don't remember the death of hair braiders. I don't remember that either. Doesn't exist. These are all fantasies. They don't exist. You remember when I was running, I had a very simple plan. It was very simple. It was, would you ask your friend? Would you ask your friend to do it? Would you ask your friend to walk your dog? Would you? Why you need a license? Would you ask your friend to braid your hair? Assuming you had hair, I don't really have it. But if you had enough to be braided, would you ask your friend to braid your hair? Of course you would. Why's your license? Would you ask your friend to remove your liver? Get a license. It's fine. Get a license. I don't have a problem with that. Okay? Yeah. If you wouldn't ask your friend to do it, get a license. If you would ask your friend to do it, why is there a license? It makes no sense whatsoever. That's what we want to change. You're exactly correct. What licensing actually does is it punishes the poor. I don't know. I've never heard. Is there such thing as there's big pharma? I know. Is there big dog walking? I don't think I know that lobbying group. Big hair braid. I don't think I know that lobbying group. I'm not sure I know what they're doing. So I think that's not true. So it's not accurate. We have to change that. Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else have a comment or a question? Great. Thank you so much for coming, guys. Thank you all for watching. We are rocking and rolling. This is our year.